Okay, so let's talk about the so-called livestock industry a little bit more in detail. Um, this is a well-known fact, by now it should be well known, that livestock industry occupies uh, 77% of the agricultural land while supplying only 18% of the calories and 37% of the protein. So most of the land, agricultural land, is occupied by the so-called livestock industry. This begs the question, uh, it is inefficient, it is an inefficient industry, but it creates artificial scarcity of land because it's so inefficient that it, it occupies the land right now uh, thanks to the livestock industry. We don't have any free land left anymore. All the land is occupied, and they are cutting down forests to have more land because basically the forests, such as Amazon forest, um, are the only um, areas that have been relatively untouched, and they are now deforesting to open more land. But um, basically, practically, their the agricultural land is decreasing due to soil loss and many other factors that ever our agricultural land is ever decreasing. This is true for the last few decades, and the expansion before we were able to uh, provide more food by expanding into new land and also increasing the yields per area, and uh, both of them are the land expansion stopped and it is regressing, and the yields are, some places it is still increasing, but especially due to climate change and etc., the yields will also start to decrease, and in many places it is already decreasing. So the, I just wanted to mention about two things. First, I have already mentioned about the inefficiency of the livestock industry, and that occupies the land. And what it does is it increases, it artificially inflates the value of the land. So the landowners profits from that. And I think that was the reason why they lied to you. That such as, Bill Gates holding is the biggest landowner in the USA, and basically that's what they are doing. And if everyone went vegan, they would we would free up to 76% of the agricultural lands. This is Oxford study 2018 by Poore et al. And you can check it out. I have mentioned this many times in my earlier videos. And that freed up land would mean that uh, land prices would go down drastically. And the landowners, the rich guys, would not be able to, their power, their monetary power would diminish. And that's why decline considerably, let's say, not diminish, but decline considerably. So that's why they kept pushing this false propaganda that you know the animal products, you need them, they're healthy, and you need milk for calcium, you need meat for protein, etc. All these animal products from all the branches of the animal products, they just push that on you. And one element in this is that land prices, to artificially inflate the land price, because the landowners are rich guys, so they just want to inflate their um, the colonizers who just came with military and just took everything and just shared within themselves, a bunch of rich guys, that they just want to inflate the land prices. Then also the medical industry. If you make people sick, which you can read here, that uh, you know non-vegans have higher rates of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, certain types of cancer, such as prostate, breast, and colon cancers, and obesity. And you can just watch this video, Uprooting the Leading Causes of Death by Dr. Greger, to realize that this is really a big business to make people sick by misinformation, by telling them that animal products are good for them, that they should consume more, and they make money by artificially inflating the land prices. They also make money by selling you pills all your life. They are not going to cure you in any way. That's not their intention. And it's good for the good. Just follow the money, you know. And recently, I just came up to this news that um, the so-called livestock industry, is claiming that it is good for the climate change too, because it is producing biogas. I mean, such a it's incredible, the arrogance, how um, they're almost like clowns. Uh, they are frauds. They are scammers. They are. Um, it is terrifying to realize that we are governed by frauds. The whole civilization is a pyramid scheme. We know this. You can watch my documentary, The Connections 2021 short documentary, and it is a fact. And you can try to debunk it, but I doubt that you will be able to. You can try. And so I'm not surprised that these frauds, these claiming that they are good for climate change. So basically, they're claiming that um, they can produce biogas from manure. And this is the lagoons in the so-called livestock industry that these enslaved and tortured and abused and murdered animals are living. You can see that the lagoons are turned red. So this is filled with pus and blood and probably parts of murdered bodies and feces and urine, and uh, this is the number one of the leading causes of pollution and causes of ocean dead zones, water pollution. This just seeps into groundwater. It is terrible for the environment. Now, the rich guys want you to think that this is good for you because it will create some biogas to replace natural gas, which is a fossil fuel. And let's check this um, claim as well with some numbers, right? So FAO's guess is that the calculations, is that 14.5% of greenhouse gas emissions come from the livestock sector. This is a lower estimate, but let's go with this, okay? And 45% of this 14.5% comes from the feed production to feed the enslaved animals, the so-called livestock animals. And the animals themselves release some methane, which contributes to 39% of the emissions from the livestock industry. And Then their manure also contributes to 10%. And then processing and transportation of these animal products contributes to 6%. So we need to focus, we need to set our priorities right. The feed production and the emissions from the animals should be our priority if we want to address these emissions, right? But because the industry, the so-called livestock industry, can't do anything about those, they will focus on manure. They can do something about this, right? What they can do is they put it in digesters. So they just basically put in big, huge pools, and they cover on top of them, so they can collect gas, which is mostly methane, not wholly methane, maybe like 60% methane or something, right? It depends, but on average, let's say 60% methane, and they just collect this and they burn it instead of burning natural gas. So you can see that it's 10% of manure. We will just assume that this 10% is whole methane, so it can be burned. Like this is like an optimistic approach, the best case scenario. Let's say that when you put this manure into digester, that we just know that 10% is the greenhouse gas. Let's say we will assume that all of them is flammable, so we can just burn it to obtain energy. And so it's 10% of manure. If we burn it, because this is methane, and methane is much more stronger greenhouse gas than CO2, and when we burn methane gas, carbon dioxide, CO2 is emitted. So when we burn methane, it turns into less potent greenhouse gas. So the issue here is that if we leave manure without burning the gas, it releases, it contributes to 10% of the greenhouse gases from the for the livestock industry if we don't burn the methane. But if we burn it, then we can reduce this 10% to 0.1 to 0.3%. How I came up with this number, 0.1 to 0.3? Well, it's easy that this 10% is for, let's say, this is for methane. What about if this was carbon dioxide? So let's turn all this methane into carbon dioxide, and you will see that the greenhouse gas potential would increase. It will decrease to about 30 to 80 times less. So you can divide by 30 or you can divide by 80. Just rough calculations here, and you will get some number from 0.1 to 0.3. Right? So this would be the amount when we burn methane, we would just release 0.1 to 0.3 percent contribution, and this contribution is already 14.5. This contribution is already 0.1 to 0.3% of 14.5%. So the total contribution from this is much less. So what I'm coming at is that the amount of natural gas that would be replaced by burning methane obtained from manure is negligible. It is next to nothing. It is 0.0 something, right? It's 0.045, let's say 0.1 even. Like even if we just assume that this 0.1, or you can call it even 0.3. Like, it doesn't make much difference. You can just neglect it. Okay, and that's because this 10% manure is. Let me repeat this to clarify. It can be confusing for some of you. So you have 10% manure, and we assume that it is methane. When we burn it, it contributes to climate change less than 0.3% for sure. Okay, because it turns into CO2. So this thing here, already the amount of methane that this is we are burning, and it's contributing less than 0.3%, it will be the same amount, or it will replace the same amount of natural gas that if when we burn that natural gas, it would contribute less than, again, 0.3%. So that amount of natural gas is nothing compared to the whole fossil fuels, or the amount of fossil fuels that we are burning. So that goes to show the insincerity of the livestock industry. And that's not just it. I'm not ending here. And let me tell you if the so-called livestock industry was honest. So if they were honest, what they would do is basically suggest people to go vegan, right? And what will happen? We know that animal products are so inefficient, so they need to produce excess feed to feed all these so-called livestock animals. So we know that the animal products are about 10 times on average, let's say 10 to 15 times something, but let's take the minimum amount, 10 times on average less efficient. That means that we can feed people with just 10% of this feed production. So instead of producing huge amounts of feed to feed to animals, we can just skip the middleman and save lots of energy and just produce 10% of it. That means that we can get rid of about 40% of the feed production. That would mean the 40% reduction, that will translate into 40% reduction in the emissions, greenhouse gas emissions also, right? So instead of just focusing on this 10% manure, we can just focus here, which by the way is this 10% manure is the product of livestock industry itself. So if we just got rid of this livestock industry, it wouldn't exist anyway. This program wouldn't exist, right? So we can just produce, let's say, 10% of this feed production. That would reduce the emissions 40%. Then 40% of the total emissions from livestock industry. Then, because we don't have the livestock industry anymore, everyone is vegan, then we can just also reduce get rid of this 39% methane from digestion in the stomachs of the animals, right? And no manure, so 10% also gone, and 6% also gone, most of them, because there will be okay, so you can just still keep this 6%. Let's say it will take the same amount of processing and transport, which that will be reduced, obviously, because you are not, all these extra processes to raise the livestock, etc. All these things is obviously much more demanding, energy demanding, than just raising much less crops and transporting. But uh, just processing, etc. But let's even if you just ignore the 6% here. Okay, so 10% gone, 39% gone, and most of the 45% gone. And even without that, you would have much more benefit. And if you still want to produce biofuels, you can still skip the middleman, which is the animals here, and you can just uh, put those crops. Let's say you just produced the whole crops here, so 45% emissions again from feed production, as it is the case for livestock industry anyway, right? And you can just feed, let's say, 5% of this to humans, to a vegan world, and then use the rest, about 40% of this feed production, just put them into pools underwater, let them digest, undergo anaerobic digestion, and you can have much more biogas by doing so, because basically you will not waste. You can see that here 39% is emitted from the animals during the digestion, anaerobic digestion, and you can't capture it, so it just goes to waste. And you can avoid that emissions from the animals if you just uh, digested, anaerobically digested the crops directly. So it is much more efficient to do so. They can produce more biogas, and even forget about the biogas. You can just let that land reforest, rewild, and absorb some carbon. That would be much more beneficial than the biogas, because basically um, it has other effects too. This energy demand has other impacts too, such as other types of pollution, necessitates mining for different sectors, because when you give some energy to humanity, they tend to destroy the nature by using that energy. So um, they can increase their populations, etc. And it is, yeah, okay. So that's the thing. And some can say, okay, let's is 39% methane from the livestock. Let's catch this, right? What, with masks, with something? Uh, I mean, I'm not making this up. You can search. This is just Google methane masks for cows. This is, they they see them as like robots. They are not feeling beings anymore. They are not individuals. They are like, they see these animals as something like 100% slave to them, that they can do anything they want with them. um, as like this is from a horror movie. I'm telling you, this is exactly. And all the humans that are like addicted and say, I can't go vegan, etc., they are part of the horror movie. They are playing the bad guys, the evil in a horror movie, like the mindless populations consuming and supporting the uh, evil characters there, like the main evil characters. And this is basically, maybe, the movies are inspired by the truth. So you can see that, oh, this guy is saying, look, uh, this is something clever to do, and so ethical to do. Look what I'm doing to nature, the animals. um, this is madness. This is all about money. The traumatized sociopaths and psychopaths, um, people who lost their identity, who they are really, they turn to, like, they turn to be all about money and you know getting rich and exploitation. It's disgusting. Look at this. Oh, look at this guy. Oh, he just imagine what we are doing to these animals. Look at this. That this guy is collecting methane. This, I mean, I don't know what to say. You can see. Can you see what's wrong with this? That where this is going? Like, um, this is like Matrix. Basically, this just became Matrix, and we are the devil here. I mean, these people. Look at him. He's just saying, "Look, this is just a robot. I will just exploit it." Like, do this guy have any empathy for this? Like, does he know what he's doing really? Does he realize what is this, where this is going? And these people are all technologically minded. You can see the same thing when they test on. Oh, the murder truck is passing. It's selling ice cream with dairy in it. So it's basically, I call it murder truck. Um, it is just playing a happy tune for the kids, for the brainwashed poor kids, that they are like, it is like a scary movie again. Even the song that they play while selling ice cream, it is scary. Um, okay, so let's end it here. And we have enslaved life. We have enslaved ourselves too. Many people maybe don't want to accept that, but we are slaves, and maybe not as much as this guy here, but we are in a terrible situation. Enslaved by technology, fooled by technological civilization. Okay, so go vegan, live minimalist, and see you in another video.